I am Jim Collison, and this is the Clifton Strengths Podcast Season 3, recorded on December 1st, 2023. In this Clifton Strengths podcast series, we'll look at how to feel more energized and motivated at work, one theme at a time. And today's theme is belief. If you're listening live, we'd love to have your comments in chat. If you're listening after the fact, podcast, YouTube, whatever, you can send us an email with your questions, coaching@gallup.com. Dr. Jaclynn Robinson is our host today. She works as a senior learning and development consultant and joined me for season 1 and 2 of the Clifton Strengths podcast. If you haven't listened to those by theme, you should be doing that as well, where we looked at well-being at work, going to be needed, and Clifton Strengths role-based reports. Jaclynn, always great to see you. Welcome back to Call to Coach.
Likewise. Thank you, JC.
We have been looking at this season around bringing energy to work. I've really enjoyed it. You know, for folks listening to this, we record these in batch, and so we do a couple at a time. I've really enjoyed working through the season. I hope others have as well. Today, we're talking about belief. Let's look at the individual first. So as individuals with high belief, how can they feel more energized? And it's weird because I don't often think of belief as an energizing theme. You know, I think of it as a value, but I think maybe we'll have some different things to say about that. What are some ways an individual with belief can feel more energized by focusing on their basic needs?
I think firstly, aligning on what are the big 3 priorities or job responsibilities, where there might be a lack of clarity in that area. You might already know what your big 3 are, but if not, can you go to your manager and get that clarity so that then, and secondly, you can map each of those priorities or key responsibilities to your own value system. And the catch there is when you start to feel misaligned by your workload, or it, continues to expand or change, you'll start to have that gut check where there might be some uneasiness. And that might be a call of action to check back in with your manager and just ask questions. How is the work connecting back to my role, or how is the work connecting back to the purpose that I hold within the company, so that you can make sure there's alignment again?
We've been spending some time talking about these themes in terms of what happens in chaos. And you know, when you think of belief in situations where things aren't quite as stable or as calm, and you think about those 3, how do you think belief approaches chaos individually?
Good question. And I think I want to say we've talked about this before too, where there's probably more receptivity to chaos if there's the purpose behind it.
Yeah.
And that chaos is still in alignment with where are we heading, and is this still a part of my core value system? But if there's chaos and there's a lack of clarity in how it's connecting back to the mission or purpose, or it doesn't feel like it is at all, then it's, I don't want to be a part of this. I don't think I like this as much. That's the beauty of belief, because there is so much passion behind the purpose. But that could also sometimes be the hindrance, right? If you maybe have belief as that theme in your top 10, where you recognize and have heard before, you're stubborn. Why won't you just move or shift with us with this new action? Well, if it's not in alignment, it's going to be hard to get on board.
No. Yeah. Basic needs are often shown in the midst of stress or chaos as things are happening. My wife has this very, very high in her top 5, and recently I left a job, and it's a very stressful situation. As you're, changing jobs can be stressful. And began to use that belief at home as she began to redo everything to kind of reset to her what she needed, the environment she needed to have to kind of get well again, so to speak, to kind of get back. And so did some things to reset that for her, to kind of set those values. This is the kind of environment I need to have. These are my values. This is what I need to have, and I'm going to reset it right now. And
That's
wow,
good.
It happened fast.
Yes.
She did not mess around. It was like next day, boom, changes went into place. But when we think about individual needs, right, that's action that gets us back to center. For belief, I think that's important. I know. Would you add anything else to that?
I think that's great. I think you also just hit the nail on the head as to the difference between belief as a theme And belief as a Webster's dictionary word.
Mm,
We all could have beliefs, but as a theme, if it's no longer, that trail is no longer moving towards your path, your desire, your purpose, your core value system,
yeah.
bye, because I need to
Yeah.
get back to my center.
Yeah. Yeah. It,
Yeah.
it took way a lot more courage than I would have ever had. I
That's the
struggled
word
with it
that
the whole
comes to
time.
mind.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It feels so courageous and brave.
Yeah.
And probably, maybe not to you if you have belief high, but as an outsider, it's like, wow,
Yeah.
that's amazing. It's
No,
just the stand, Custer's
I've,
last stand. Were
I've
you?
been married to it for 35 years and I was still amazed. I was like, wow. I was moved by watching
Yes.
her go through that process and just kind of like, wow, that took courage and that's powerful. And man, I wish I had that
It's
kind of
awesome.
belief, right? I just don't.
Yes.
I kind of waver a little bit on some of those kinds of things. I was like, I was
Yes.
kind of scared, and she was like,
Yes,
"No, this is the
scared.
right thing. This is what I'm doing." Right. And there's some folks in chat saying that as well. As we think, we could talk about that
So
probably for the
neat.
rest of it. That's a powerful theme,
I
right?
know.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah. We could
And
probably
it shows that executing piece because you're so moved by them. Sometimes you go, okay, how do I act faster?
right.
Because I'm feeling out of alignment. How do
Yeah.
I be more like that person?
No, right on. It made me think about some
Yeah.
things like, am I doing some stuff I should just ditch because it
Yes.
doesn't align with my core values? Right. I mean, it's
Yeah.
powerful when you see someone do that. It is, we'll talk about the manager here in just a second, but I think in management, it's super powerful. Right. I think
Mhm.
sometimes we think of it as flighty and ethereal, and it's not. It's powerful and moving,
Yes.
right, in a lot of ways. Let's talk about energy, bringing more energy. How can you feel more energized by focusing your individual strengths and development that way?
Yes. So thinking of work scenarios you like the most and the internal or external customers that leave you feeling refreshed, just rejuvenated. What's the topic that you're speaking about with that particular audience that's so rejuvenating or inspiring to you? And then how can you build more of that into your day? Because what's bringing you energy is heard. We hear it in your voice, the passion with which you speak about it, and that can really fire up and ignite other people too. So not only are you able to live more within that area of energy, if you're studying what works and you try to incorporate more of it, but you're bringing everybody else on board too, because we just hear it like,
Yeah.
oh, love
Uh,
this.
yeah, I hear that inspiring word in there,
Yes.
inspiring others, and even at a non-manager level, thinking about just being a team member, how
Hmm.
powerful that can be in a team. I almost think of it as a shining light to move
Yes.
towards someone who is like, I am standing and I don't care what happens. I'm staying, right?
Yes.
And people are drawn to that, right? They're drawn to that particular talent, that ability to stay and say, no, this is what we're doing. This is what I'm doing.
Hmm.
Thinking from an individual standpoint. Well, let's transition that to partnerships, feeling more energized by building partnerships and purpose within their role. Can you talk a little bit about that too, or add on to that with that idea?
Yep. I think someone high in belief has a great ability to foster that atmosphere where others can feel comfortable living with their own passion and purpose, if they allow that space for it. One reason, just because they hear you speak so passionately about your own path, you kind of invoke in them that opportunity to share out with you. So you can really inspire and motivate your team members when the work gets busy or tough by helping them see the significance and purpose of their work. So, kind of two elements there. When it gets tough, you're that voice. You could be the light, as you just mentioned, Jim, that keeps
Mhm.
people moving forward. But also, if you're just in conversation, sharing out your own passion and purpose, you could start to deepen trust and rapport and that psychological safety on your team, where now you have your colleagues slash friends sharing out things that are important and meaningful to them.
Yeah.
So two things. I don't know if I split that up as clearly when I had just mentioned it. So I wanted to readdress that.
I think so. As you're talking, I'm thinking what we're talking about oftentimes, we've spent the last couple seasons thinking about moving from me to we. And I think
Hmm.
oftentimes we think of belief in the individual context of how I respond and not always putting it in the context of its influence.
Mm-hmm.
to others around us. Maybe influenced with the small I. It could have some influencing domain type things as well. But
Yeah.
just thinking about that, and I'm stealing that, Sally, from you from the chat room. But it is this ability to move others with you not moving. That makes sense.
Yes.
I'm not moving, and then others move around you, right? To because they sometimes we need that.
Yes. Like
Sometimes
a
we need to
beacon.
move, right? Not in every situation do we need to plant the flag, so to speak. There's times we need to move, but there are times those we need to stay. And I love that. I kind of get inspired by it just thinking about it. We
Yes.
let's switch to the managers. We think about a manager with belief. How can they use that to support others' basic needs?
Bringing stability to team members through the convictions and the values that they hold. As priorities shift, explaining to the team how that change aligns with the team's purpose. And also, when barriers exist for your team, being that voice that raises the issue to the appropriate, department. And I remember connecting with someone high in belief and saying, "Yeah, when it comes to barriers or frustrations, what do you do?"
Mm,
Oh, I'm the person. I know exactly who I need to go to because I believe so much in the work we do that we can't have that barrier exist any longer. So I'm going to go, use my voice and be heard, plant that red flag of, "Hey, look at this, address this please because it's hindering our opportunity to share far and wide
yeah.
what our purpose is."
I think the hard part of this is in the moment. It's sometimes hard the flag has been planted. This to use your terminology, mine too. We plant
Mhm.
the flag. Hey, I'm standing on this. In when you're as a manager to know one if that's the right thing to do in the moment. Because like I said, sometimes we need to stay and sometimes we need to move, and that's where it gets hard. Listen, it's easy to say these things in the context of a vacuum. We're recording
Yes.
these inside a vacuum. They're just we're these are situations that don't really matter for the most part. But as we think about future situations for everybody listening, it is hard in those moments to do that. Let's just admit that, right? It's hard to know, and so we struggle and we work through it, right? We work through it together. And so as we think about
Yeah.
this idea, I think of this next question of helping others feel seen, heard, and valued as an individual. And I
Mhm.
think that's kind of part of the key. Talk a little bit about that.
Yes. And so this is where if we think about belief, it's, you have core values, a core mission and purpose. You would love if people, shared that with you. But this is an opportunity to ask your employees what they're passionate about and
Mm,
learn how you can be a support system for their purpose, their hobbies and interests that they
mm,
hold. And that can really deepen their trust and rapport with you because, you're giving them the allowance to be their own individual with their own value system and
mm,
desires. And when you're that champion right alongside them, now you can use your voice in a different way where you're passionate about them and what they believe in. Harder to do, I'm sure, in some
it's really hard to
areas.
do. Yeah,
Can
it's
be
really hard.
very hard for this particular theme, but that's also, I think, why we need to highlight it so much because that's where you can really stand a deepen trust and rapport.
Yeah. Yeah, this is serious business. I think sometimes, not that the other ones aren't, right? But I think
Hmm.
that we're touching on a subject here in this area of values, and we think about directional or movement or doing tasks or getting things done or whatever. And that's highly emotional to people.
Hmm.
And so these are hard things to do. We have this question about building trust and inspire and deepen team collaboration and community. What do you think? What does that look from a belief standpoint? What does that look like when it's happening to you? What are some, and not specific
Yes.
examples, but paint, you're really good at this. Kind of paint a picture for me of what you think that means for belief.
Leaning them with curiosity to see what values or beliefs are driving the team. You might have that big, North Star of what the purpose is for the team. What are the values or beliefs they hold that are getting them to that purpose, which could be very different from your own values and beliefs. And then when you assign work in the future as well, are you able to connect it back to their values or beliefs that they mentioned?
Mhm,
Because that's going to
mhm,
drive their motivation. So almost the strengths perspective here, where we say, hey, we can all get to the same outcome, but we're going to do it different based on our own thoughts, behaviors, feelings. In this case, as someone high in belief, you might have the purpose that your team is set out to accomplish, but what are their own values and beliefs that are motivating them to get there? And then
I love that
celebrate it
thought.
and reiterate it time and
Yeah.
again. It's going to motivate them.
I love that thought of taking belief and using it for others' benefit
Mm-hmm.
and then asking those questions. Yes, I think this. What do you think? Like,
Yes.
how do you get
Yes.
there? And then how do we reconcile that in some way to get that done? I know that sounds a little bit like harmony. All these things blend together as they work together, but taking that belief or having belief for someone else right there.
Mm-hmm.
As a manager, you may need to take on with high belief, you may need to take on a value of someone else and support them with your belief when they can't, right? To do what
Yes.
they can't do.
And that even goes back to what we just mentioned about how do you make your team members feel seen, heard, and valued?
Yeah.
Yeah. What are their passions or hobbies or beliefs, and how do you lend your voice to that?
Yeah. Bring
Yeah.
belief on their behalf. Yeah, I love that. Last question as we kind of bring this in for a landing. How can a manager with belief support the growth of each team member? We've alluded to this, but
We
kind of
have. I
wrap it
was
up.
just thinking that.
Yeah, wrap it up for us. Bring it together as we think about that
Yes.
for each team member.
So more clearly lending your sense of passion to team members to help them craft their individual development plan that's in alignment with their career plan and their life's purpose. So you might have different values and motivations in life, but your encouragement to help them walk their own path will bring fulfillment to you both.
Belief is one of those interesting themes that across cultures I've seen takes on kind of a different flavor, a different feel, kind of
Hmm.
culturally based on the culture where the culture sees things. Even individually, culturally, if I think about just what I know about different aspects of it here in the United States, is we this is it this is one that's hard. This is one's harder, I think, harder to talk about, and I think one that really deserves study and
Hmm.
deserves introspection and deserves some time to tease out in some values exploration within both individuals and with teams. And listen, they all deserve this. I don't want to just say this, pull this one, but this is one of those I think that deserves some real thought and introspection. As we wrap it, any final thoughts, Jaclynn, you want to add to that?
Maybe for someone, your point high in belief, really honing in on what is meaningful or purposeful for
Yeah,
you. Where is it necessary as potentially a part of the role to have everyone focused on that same goal or mission, but then being okay and comfortable with people getting there in their own way
yeah. Mm,
due to their own motivations, values, or passions. And through that, you can create a lot of stability and foster a really enriching community and an inspiring community for everybody.
love it. Won't
And that's
won't
it.
add. Let's it. Drop the
Mic
mic.
drop.
Yeah, good. Well, we appreciate you as you're listening to this, and if you got belief in your top five, I hope we've said a few things today that bring some value, and love to dialogue with you on that as well. We'll remind everyone to take full advantage of all the resources we do have available in Gallup Access. Head out to my.gallup.com, log in, and there's a resources tab. Put in belief, and everything, just about everything we've done on that is available there for you. Some additional learning for coaching, master coaching. If you want to become a Gallup certified strengths coach, just send us an email, coaching@gallup.com. That's good for any questions as well.
Mhm.
And we'll get somebody to get right back to you. If you want to join us for the 2024 Gallup at Work Summit, we'd love to have you join us.
Wow.
Or maybe it's after 2024. We probably have one for
Coming up.
2025 or 2026. I've said this in past years. Head out to gallupatwork.com and figure out how to get that done today. And then stay up to date on all future webcasts by joining our Facebook or LinkedIn groups. You can find us on social media by searching CliftonStrengths just about everywhere. If you enjoyed it, hit those like and subscribe buttons and please share it. Thanks for listening today. Thanks for coming out. If you're listening live, stay around for a little bit of post show. With that, we'll say goodbye, everybody.